Good morning, Jane. Nice to be with you again.
Good morning, Anthony.
I thought it'd be good to recap a few things. Because interestingly enough, my son called me this morning. He said to me, Dad, I was doing my meditation and I was observing, as I do, what's going on inside me, my fear, and stuff comes up and thoughts come up and that. He said, but I think what's gone to a new level through the observation is how much I believe it. And he said, even with the amount I've done, I didn't realize just how much I believe this is real. The more I'm doing this, the more I'm realizing how much I believe all this.
What, believe his thoughts?
Thoughts, feelings, everything that's going on inside. He believes it's all real. Everything. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
He's seeing how much he believes it through observation of it. Because soon as he turns his attention or focus to releasing it, there's a part that doesn't want to let go, there's a part that fights, and just pure observation. And what's interesting about that is I remember when I first started doing meditation over 40 years ago, a lot of the teaching then, and it still is today in some contexts, where it's talking about stilling your mind. Sit and just be still, which is a good thing. I'm not saying not to do that.
Yeah.
That will serve a certain purpose, especially in today's world, as you said earlier, with all the social media and all the stuff going on. Sometimes just sitting still is a very good thing.
Yeah.
But in the end, it won't change anything. Because you can sit there and be still as long as you want to, and hopefully wait that you'll hear God's voice. That's what a lot of teachers taught, spiritual teachers. Be still. Nothing will change, because what you're doing, in effect, is actually still being in control. The catch to all of this is I am not a physical being. I'm not a human being. I'm not who I think I am. It's actually that simple. I got to give up believing who I think I am and be in a place of, then who am I? Who really am I? And all that stuff that comes up through the observation process, as I practice being the awareness of it and just observing it, in time I will understand more about why I am saying I'm not that stuff, but I really do believe it. I really am attached to it. I really do identify with it. And that is the only place in which real healing and miracles start to take place and can take place. Because otherwise what I'm still doing is controlling it. I am still controlling what is going on. And it's the art of giving up the illusion of control to get the real control. And I do want to clarify that for people.
Right.
See, people think, to be spiritual or whatever, I've got to give up control. No. The control we are living is an illusion. It's a fantasy. The evidence is, all we have to do is look at things in our life that really we want, or we believe we want, or we feel we want, and we think is coming from our heart because it's causing us angst after we experience the desire that comes from contrast. Our control doesn't work. Getting true control, which you have to have. We're not powerless beings. We actually are phenomenally creative, powerful beings, but we're non-physical beings. We're eternal awareness. We're non-physical focuses of energy. And for some people, that's like, I don't know what that means, or it's too hard to comprehend. Actually, if you spend 1 week just observing what's going on inside yourself, and in that week you started to really consciously observe just how much you believe it, and you consciously observed who's all this coming to. In other words, who's aware of all of this? Just that changes your perception, because you realize, wow, I'm amazing. I'm creating all of this through my energy. My thoughts and my feelings are creating my life. Yeah, but I know that person's doing this and the world is doing it. Yeah, I understand all that. But,
That's a bit of a leap, actually, to get that, that if you spend a week being aware of what's going on in your thoughts and your feelings, and then you get that you're creating all of it. That's from observation to getting that you create all of it is a leap.
It is a leap of faith.
So explain that a little bit more.
Okay, so as I start to observe, and I really observe, and it's not an intellectual process. I've really got to feel inside while I'm doing it with my mind. Observe the feelings, the sensations, the thoughts, everything that's going on in my body. You can put any title you want to on it. But there is there's energy in my energy field. And as I really observe, and then every so often, I ask myself, who's this arising to? And to begin with, it'll be an intellectual. With me, it's obvious. Really? Is it really obvious to you that it is you? Because if you really get that it's you, why you keep going down that direction again? Why aren't you doing something about it? For me, there's two consciousnesses that I look at. I call the one the distracting consciousness. What's the distracting one? It's thoughts, feelings, sensations, fears, whatever you want to call them, that distract me from my connection to my source, to my God. Because they have me experience fear, separation, doubt, anxiety, all that stuff, which doesn't exist in the God energy. Doesn't.
Yeah, I mean that in a way, and completely, it's dependent on the fact that you believe that there is a God energy.
Well, you don't have to believe in it if you don't want to. Just carry on living your life, and life will prove it to you. You see, when you say a God energy, people think of God.
They do.
Very important thing to understand, and this is something that did come up with my son this morning, and he got an inkling of it, is that the human consciousness is built justifiably. Please, I'm saying that, so I'm validating why we got to where we got to. There's a rationale behind it, based on its faculties that we have, the brain, the intellect, these things. It's been built on a fantasy. Because it started with the belief that we separated from our source. We separated from something. Because that's what we experience. We all experience the separation, this notion that there's a threat that exists all the time to us. And it cannot be a threat when you're one with the universe. Threat doesn't exist, because what's the worst thing that can happen?
You die.
And that's not real. It's only the human. If you really get that there's no separation, there's no threat. It takes a little bit of while to get to that one, but
particularly because what the mind does, it says, well, if I'm in a war situation, there is a threat, and I might die.
Okay, but that's not your mind. Your mind right now the human mind actually is a connection to our spirit, in my opinion. That's spirit. The problem is our mind has become so hypnotized in such a vessel of the human consciousness because we are focuses of energy.
Right.
Until you get you're a focuser of energy, and an eternal focuser of energy. When you're in the physical body, you have no alternative in the beginning other than focus on what's going on and what you experience. The gravity of being in a physical body. It's gravity. The gravity of the physical consciousness, the stream of consciousness that exists within the human being, it's like gravity, and we've immediately, like we're stuck here on Earth. You're lucky, you don't float away, okay?
Yeah.
Well, that's the same thing what happens to us. We focus on that and we believe everything about it until something else changes our
perception.
Until something happens. It could be a tragedy. For some people, who knows what it is? It's random, all right?
Yeah.
But it's usually driven by contrast. And within the contrast is the desire. So, I understand. I still have days where I still wonder. But that doesn't change the fact where the wondering is coming from about whether there is God in the source and all that. Because guess what? It's still coming from my human perception. I know that because it's distracting me. And then the other consciousness, which I'm just going to mention because I said there were two. So there's the distracting one, and there's what I call or what others have called the in-between, and I call the meaningless one. They said to me, the in-between one is like, what's for lunch? What's the baseball score? What am I doing today? Because they come up in between the things. You're going through your day and you're very upset about what's going on in the world, and your world's been shattered and you've got to do something about it. And then every so often it's like, oh, well, let's go and have lunch. And you forget about it, right?
Yeah.
And that's the meaningless stuff or the in-between stuff. But it's still going on. There's no judgment to any one of it. But it's good to become aware of my consciousness, because what I want to become aware of is, as a focuser of energy, and I have a powerful mind that when I put to, it does something, it creates. What am I putting my mind to most of the time? People, I know a lot of teachers have taught about the mind does this, the mind does that, the rational mind does this, the rational mind. Well, it's given the mind a really bad rap. It's like basically what it's told us is that we really are hopeless. And that's not true. I don't believe there's hopelessness behind it. I believe we're ignorant. I believe we've all got caught for thousands of years in this dynamic going on here. But of itself, it's meaningless. Really, because it's not the reality of the universe. It can't be. Physics is. We know that.
So you've got the human consciousness.
A stream of consciousness.
Stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
And the in-between bits, like wanting to have lunch. That's
well, what am I going to do today? It's all part of being in the human body. There's no right or wrong in it. So remember, it just is. You know.
And then there's source energy and what you're deciding to focus on. Like becoming aware of the human consciousness, and then becoming aware of the fact that your source energy, and what are you focusing on?
Yeah, and how am I going to, and therefore how am I going to relate to those things? So I start creating a stream. I start changing my perception, which creates a new stream of consciousness in the human body.
Yeah.
But I'm also understanding that there's a stream of source energy, which is only of well-being, abundance, true love, and peace. Nothing else. All the rest of the stuff comes from the human being. You know, like when the spacemen go into space. I haven't been there, so I'm believing what they tell me, and I know there are those who believe that they've never gone there. But let's assume they did actually go up into space, and they did walk.
They are up there at the moment.
Well, we don't know. That's what we've been told, okay? You know, and I know I was present when there were those standing next to me who actually saw a rocket take off. So it was very well created if it was a conspiracy. It's very well done. A lot of effort went into sending something up. But when we... You get copy of my thoughts now, Jay.
Sorry.
What are you doing to me? When we get that...
Well, you were saying about looking at the Earth.
Okay, so when you go into space and you're in...
Yeah.
There's no gravity.
Yes.
And you're just floating around.
Yes.
Okay. So we know that happens. All right. So then for me, it's not a far stretch to actually imagine and remind myself of what it would be like being aware in the consciousness that is just purely the love that I often feel, the peace that I do have, that's in me already, that sense that I know there's well-being, because I have that every so often, and the sense that there's a peace, even though there's bombs falling around me metaphorically and other places. I have those. I have those moments every day now. Much more than I ever did before. So I know that it's real. So who's to say that couldn't be the dominant vibration or the dominant stream of consciousness in me? And that's the one I choose to relate to my world with. Okay?
Very good.
And, you know, we can all argue for the stuff and come up with it, but I know what's real to a certain extent in my physical world because of how I interact with it now. All right? So I know, for example, I can have a moment where my humanness kicks in because something's happened, and I feel all that stuff. And then I do my 3 steps. You know, step 1 is stop. Step 2, observe. Step 3 is giggle. Even though it's all hell breaking loose inside me, you know, the tsunami's going on. Okay? First one is catch myself, stop, observe, giggle. Because I notice for me that really does work. It kind of breaks it. Okay? I get a couple of internal slaps when I giggle from my the little humanness. You know, that little ugly head comes up and whacks me.
Yeah.
Okay. But I know it works. And then I know I change my perception, even over silly little things. I can change my perception in relationship to the distracting consciousness. I can change my perception in relationship to the in-between consciousness, like the baseball score.
Yeah.
Or the what's for lunch, or what am I going to wear today, you know, or what's happening. It's just, you know, and I realize then that actually I have incredible power, and my mind is incredible. And that's why I wanted to clarify that perception of the mind does that. The mind does do it in the sense that it's been hypnotized, it's fell asleep. I'm told by those who know better than me that even in Genesis, early on in the Bible, it talks about that man fell asleep. And it's kind of been asleep ever since. All right, as to who we are, and what we're doing. And I'm not talking about some mystical spiritual path. I tried those; it didn't work. I'm talking about I just want to have a better quality of life. I'd like to have some good stuff in my life because I am here in a body. I'm being in the world more than I ever was, but I'm trying to be not of it more than I ever was, if that makes any sense. And for me, like little things I had to do is I really had to practice daily, changing my perception and releasing the notion that anyone or anything in the physical can bring me happiness, security, joy, love, etc.
That is a really, 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 really big one, isn't it?
Or anyone was responsible for taking my joy, even. They don't give me joy, they were taking my joy. Okay?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, I had to really get how much on a day-to-day basis I use, my wife's behavior and the world's behavior as an excuse for not having those things happen. I really had to do that. I observed that. That was like a week's process of just observing that, just alone. Observe that, just see what is really going on and how much I did, use as an excuse. The yes, but, and the arguing that would go on inside me. Okay?
I know. That's extraordinary. When you're focusing on what is making you unhappy, for example. When I've done that, when I something's happened and that has made me unhappy, my focus is completely on that thing.
Yeah.
Whether it's a person who's done something to me or behaved in a way that I found upsetting or whatever, I'm completely entangled. My consciousness, my human consciousness, is completely entangled in that. I am that. It feels like it almost feels like I'm possessed by it. Inhabited by the thing that just happened or the person who's just done something, and I can't let it go.
So here's an important thing that I really had to learn to give up. But I had to become aware of it, tell myself the truth about it. We really do think something, someone, and I'll say it again, we really do think something out there or someone cares. And until we get how much we think someone cares about what we think and what we feel, particularly when we're not feeling good, okay? Our opinions about what's going on in the world, in our world and the world. We really do believe that. And people will argue about that one. I know they do, okay? Because I've been there, I've argued it. More about what's going on in relationship to myself.
Who do you think that people think that is the someone that cares?
The range from the person I'm unhappy with.
Oh, right, okay.
The person I think I love, or I don't want a relationship with.
I mean, they might care.
It's irrelevant.
But it's not.
Actually, the problem is if they do care, then all they're doing is helping me to stay stuck. Okay.
Yeah.
But the biggest one was I really did believe, because I've always believed in God. I thought God cared. Okay, because that's what I've been led to believe.
Yeah.
That God cares. When I'm suffering, I'm earning a place in heaven. All right. Or when I'm going through a tough time, it's for the afterlife. I really, that's definitely in me, because when I dug deep enough and observed deep enough, it still comes up. You see, I still really, one of my big ones at the moment that is really strong is when I really giggle at the absurdity of my personality and my consciousness in relationship to certain things.
Yeah.
Things that I get really upset and tight about. I really do think that when I laugh at it, and it gets, I can see this little ugly face inside of me that gets back at me. And it really comes down to that I really think that I feel like I'm wrong for laughing at God. In other words, I'm laughing at God. I'm saying, you know what? In a way, I'm saying, F you, this is so not real, what I'm feeling right now. It's irrelevant. But I'm saying that to God, because that's what I've been led to believe, that, this is what God wants for us. On some level, every single human being on this planet, I can tell you, is connected to that one. Because that was the original separation, the original sin. It's there. Just all you've got to do is look inside yourself, go a little bit deeper, be fearless in seeking, fearless in inquiring, fearless in searching, examining where these thoughts are coming from, and you'll see it goes back to, we really believe it has something to do with our source, with God. Okay, and it's quite amazing. Start giving that stuff up. In other words, what I'm saying is, I had to learn to give up aspects of entitlement.
That is
Well,
funny.
you hear it all the time. People believe there's this
funny.
thing called human rights. It's an entitlement, right? We're entitled to our rights. Actually, the only thing you're going to find out from that path is enormous pain for the next probably 5+ lives at least. You can go through the same stuff again. If you think I'm exaggerating, do yourself a favor. Get a book by Dr. I think his name is Brian Weiss. Read it, people. Called Many Lives.
Brian Weiss.
Yeah, Brian. It's on Amazon and that. It's called Many Masters, Many Lives. Get the original. It's quite eye-opening, even to non-believers. He has a scientist, a doctor, psychiatrist who did not believe in spirituality one iota. Shook his world.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, I had to give up stuff giving up believing that we don't always have a choice. But give up being a sheep, not a sheaf, a sheep. And give up giving your creative power to others, influencers, politicians, and all these different movements, the tribalism that's going on in our society. I mean, think about the insanity of this. People genuinely believe, there's millions out there who genuinely believe the solution to our problems is to change our political powers, our tribal powers. If we switch from this ism to another ism, it's going to solve the problem. If we take all that from those who seem to be privileged and give it to those, it's going to work. I mean, brilliant. Great solution. It's worked for Africa. It's worked for other parts of the world. Really has worked. Look at the evidence. Look at the anarchy.
Yeah.
Maybe human beings are such that's why there were those who, over 1,000 years ago, in the Chinese Empire, or to start the Chinese Empire, in the Roman Empire, which is over 1,000 years ago, in all empires that existed, they wanted to establish something that worked. They all understood there was a requirement for a certain level of accountability given the nature of the human being. Given how a human being's basic nature is the only thing that creates evil. Nothing else does. No animal does. Nothing else in this universe creates evil other than the human's consciousness.
Wow.
And
that's very powerful.
And that's why certain laws were required. They don't always work, because unfortunately they don't always work, because the person who really has disconnected that much from their source will commit the crime. But for many others, it still has them be aware that it doesn't work to do certain things.
That's very interesting, isn't it? That the human being is the only thing that creates evil in the world. Because things in and of themselves, like drought, for example, that's just drought.
Just
right?
is, yeah.
Or hurricanes, they're hurricanes.
Yeah.
They don't have a value base. But evil, and it's very interesting historically, because evil has been, the way that as societies have talked about it, evil sits outside the human being, outside human consciousness.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And guess what? We blame God for it in the end.
And we blame, yes, and then there's loads of practices that we do in order to protect ourselves from evil. And you say, when anthropologists look back and they say, well, they did this kind of ceremony in order to ward off bad things happening. I mean, that was normally nature things. But you're talking about evil.
Well, okay, no, the way you're saying evil there, do you realize deliberately lying to your kids about really the reality of life, for example, and having them raised to believe that every time they get upset, their ego gets upset about not getting their way, which starts at a really young age, having them believe that that's only a short-term thing and that, mommy, daddy will take care of it and bail them out, is a good thing. That's evil. Because what you're doing is you're setting them up for a miserable life. Or to become, the only way they're going to succeed is becoming like the people who are out there who are successful through greed, oppressing others, taking away things from others. That to me is evil meaning errors, because that's where the word evil actually what it meant was error.
Oh,
It was,
really?
yeah, you know, that's kind of its basis, roots. Or it was an erroneous perception about stuff. Okay, I'm not talking about the evil of, you know, murder and rape. I mean, that's awful, but that's not everyone doing that. It's not.
No.
It's not happening on a mass scale. But it was But the point I'm making is, and this is a really important thing. You see, to me, we're not enlightened enough as a human race to have what many liberals or intellectuals believe is possible. Okay? And then what happens is we keep repeating the same patterns. History keeps repeating itself. I'm amazed at how many people don't even question that. It's like really interesting. We keep recreating the same stuff. It's just happening maybe in a different neighborhood.
Yeah. I read I can't remember who it was. Somebody called Stephen Turner said, history repeats itself. It has to. No one listens.
Well, in a way, that's true.
Yeah.
And that's,
there's no learning that is taking place.
Yeah. You know, we in a funny way really do believe we can control the universe and the laws of the universe. We really do, on an individual level and a bigger level. And it's actually extraordinary to observe it in oneself. Because I really do believe that if I genuinely am upset about something, because it really is real, you know, I mean, real, it happened, so I'm justified. And I really believe that if I'm a good person, whatever that means, but I believe I'm being the good person, I'm on the side of the moral high ground, you know, whatever that means, because again, I've got another judgment in there, that the universe will get me through it. It'll help. I mean, talk about insanity. And this is going on out there. It's extraordinary observing right now what's happening. Okay? You know, I just wonder how many people are realizing today, in 2026, that we are walking a path, an incredible path right now in history. So many years later, they're going to have better records because of our technology than what we've had from 50 years ago and 100 years ago. They're going to have extraordinary records of it. And I wonder how many people really realize right now we are speeding up history because of technology. So what's going to happen, the revolution that's going to take place in our society, is all it's going to do is it's going to move a few things around. So what today may seem like, it looks good, pretty cool, meaning a country that actually has incredible freedoms, because it has the freedom to talk the nonsense that people are talking. Okay, it has a country that has the freedom that where actually people can have freedom of religion. There's a lot of stuff going on in countries. America's one of them. England, to a certain extent, was one of them up until recently. There are countries, Europe has got some of those countries where there's incredible freedoms.
Yeah.
We're giving all that up. So that countries right now that have no freedom, really, people don't. You know, women can't be what they want to be.
Yeah.
Will take over. That will be the new empires. And the lesson won't be learned. And it's not about what the countries are doing, so please don't mishear what I'm saying. It's nothing to do with the rights and wrongs that are going on. It's to do with humanity's consciousness. As long as people are aware, this is the path we're going on.
Gosh.
You know. Listen, I probably won't be around for it, so it's okay. I'm okay with it, you know. I want to be careful next time I come back where I go. I need to really make sure. I'm not going to just let my vibration take me there.
Yeah.
Do you see I'm deluding myself, thinking that I can control it?
Yeah. As if.
Yeah.
It's not like picking a holiday destination, is it?
You see, there are people who really do believe that we're all meant to be the same. That our beliefs, our values, our thoughts, opinions, and our characteristics should be the same. And they actually come from a very good place, because what the desire they're experiencing in their contrast is they really would like to see the world have harmony, have some well-being, have some peace, take care of itself. It's a fantastic desire.
Yeah, so
they just don't understand it.
Yeah.
It ain't going to happen.
If your belief is that this is the right way this is the only way,
Yeah.
you're going to want to dominate.
Correct. You're gonna, because your humanness is going to take over. What you're
Yeah.
going to do is you're going to do exactly what you're
Yeah.
accusing the person you don't like of
Yeah.
doing. Right.
So there was, like in the West, as you've said, that was a liberal way of anything goes and everybody is entitled to a view.
Yeah.
But there's other ways of thinking, which is that no, this is the way. And
Well,
it's
maybe,
going to clash.
but
Those
maybe the
things
biggest,
are gonna clash.
maybe the most important thing at an individual level is to really get the only connectedness we really all have is we all come from the same source, which is the source of love, peace, well-being, and abundance. It knows no illness, no oppression, nothing. And that everyone is on their own path of evolution because it's eternal. We ain't going anywhere. It ain't finishing. There ain't no end. And I tell you, that's one to sit on because it'll bring up enormous emotion when you really get. I'm so deluding myself here, thinking that my little life here is so important. Yes, but then what's the point? I need to get to that. What's the point? If I'm not addicted to the drama, if I'm not experiencing being alive through the drama, what is the point?
Sure.
Okay? And the funny thing is that there are people out there who are genuinely happy, thriving in wars, in stuff they're doing. But it seems like there's a lot of us who can't let them be. So we get involved, we join in, but we're so unhappy, we're so angry, we're so frustrated, we're so this and we're so that. And then we think the outcome's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
This is what's so amazing about it. It's so insane that it's actually quite amusing when you start watching what's happening in the world today. The insanity of it. Okay, so I'm going to give an example. I lived in a neighborhood up until a year ago where when the social activism kicked off a few years ago, just after COVID, it really started getting big. I think it was, the Black Lives Matters and woke and all that started kicking stuff off, and all good stuff, by the way.
Yeah.
But what was fascinating was the number of young people who started going out on the street, getting all uppity about what was happening, and they needed to express themselves. But you have to ask yourself, by the way, this has been going on in certain places of the world in an extreme manner for thousands of years, and it's still going on. Where were they? Not a word, because it didn't suit them. Okay, that's hypocrisy. You move a few years later to now what's going on, and things have changed and moved around a little bit, and now we've got other troubles in the world. And a few weeks ago or months ago, there was massive demonstrations across the colleges and stuff in America, in Europe, by a lot of people who were upset about what was going on in a certain place. And then we go a few weeks later, and there's another place who's an enemy with that place just decided they're going to kill 25,000 people in 2 weeks who were protesting about certain rights and stuff. Not a thing. Nothing on the colleges. No one stood up and said, wait a minute, that's not right. But you were getting all upset the other day.
Yeah.
Hypocrisy. By the way, all I'm saying is become aware. That's who you are. When you get you're a hypocrite, you've got a chance of healing your life.
Yeah.
Very important step. Okay. Become aware of what a hypocrite your human consciousness is, your personality is.
Yeah.
And then you can become free. But without that, don't expect much other than more of the same.
Yes.
It's not possible because you're trying to defy gravity. We all are. You see,
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, you have to become aware of it. You have to become aware of...
you don't have to.
Well...
No, you don't have to, because there's no have-tos. But all I'm saying is a potential wake-up call for some people right now. There are some people out there right now who are involved in all different pockets of life who are coming at the moment from a genuine wanting to understand what's going on in the world and to wake up.
Mm.
And they are reaching out to the first thing that's possible. They may want to wake up, but no one has to, because it's not going to end. It's been going on for over 1 million years on this planet alone. Okay, 1 million years. So my little 80 years here is quite extraordinary, isn't
Yeah.
it? But look how seriously I take it.
Yeah.
So important, so important how I feel. And I must be right. Because I'm a good person, I'm on the side of right.
Yes.
That guy who's creating money out there and is rich, so rich that it's mind-boggling, he has to be evil. Well, he's doing something right with the universe. I can tell you that. He's aligned with somewhere along the line with the laws of the universe. Otherwise you don't create that much. All right? But no one ever thinks about that. And no one ever stops and says, it's interesting because he's also creating a lot of jobs for our sheep. Because we want to still be sheep.
I mean,
Or she may be doing it. Sorry, she may be creating those jobs as well.
yes, there is there's so much judgment in relation to, or rather there's cynicism about somebody being rich, and they must be abusing somebody along the way in order to create wealth. There seems to be a perspective that, tax the rich, get rid of the rich are evil. There are demonstrations about that now. Kill the rich. Where there is an assumption, I think, that the rich must be in some way abusing others in order to gain their wealth. That the wealth is not a good wealth, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, well, okay, so I didn't really want to go in this direction, but now that we're in this direction, I just want to give some people some food for thought. If you're living in what's often been called a first world country, I don't know if people understand what a first world country means and what a third world country meant. Okay, it was all about economics, creativity. So there are first world countries at the moment who have decided out of guilt, fear, anger, a whole bunch of human emotions to, as you said, attack what has been the creative force or juice of that country. So it will eventually become third world. So the grandchildren of people and their grandchildren will have nothing. Because what people don't understand is if you're not creating, whether we like it or not, in the human existence, economics plays a vital part. And economics is just an energy that reflects the universe's energy. That's why there's so much abundance in it. Do you know how much abundance there is on Earth? I don't think people actually realize how much abundance there is. You know how much abundance there is in parts of the world right now where there are famines and there is strife and they're poor? Most people don't actually look at the facts. All right? I grew up at a time, I remember when I grew up, but when I was like 20, we were feeding Africa.
Yeah.
Nothing's changed because it never would change. Because the consciousness doesn't change. Remember, you want to change a problem? Change the thinking that created it. So as long as you've got tribalism and you've got politicians who are corrupt, because people want that, that's who they vote for. Because it's much easier, while I'm believing that I'm poor me and I can't do anything about it because I've forgotten who I really am in this universe. Of course, I'm going to keep voting for that and I'm going to keep creating that. Right? But these are things that are really unfolding right now as we exist. It's happening in real time in our lives that we're changing the course of the map of this of Earth. The geographic and economic map is going to change. And that's okay. The universe and Earth will survive it, and man will survive it. But it'll just happen somewhere else. So someone else is going to become the dominant with all the money, and they'll do the same things. Because that's how it goes until consciousness changes and shifts. But I'm only saying it because it's really important for some people out there to understand that what they're doing, the path they're walking on, will not be fulfilled. There's no happy ending to an unhappy journey. And they're not going to achieve what they think they are. So even if it's 1 in a million who hear this and realize, God, what the hell am I doing this for? Yes, I feel so angry and upset about what I see in the world. That's the contrast. Now, what's my true desire? I want to see this and that. Well, you better become it because you ain't it right now. You're filled with exactly what you're seeing in
What
the
you're
world.
seeing
That's
in
why
the
you.
world.
That's why you're feeling it so much. It's in your
Yeah.
energy field.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be feeling it if you didn't have it.
Yeah.
A person who truly walks with peace,
Yeah.
with a sense of knowing all is well, that has a sense of there's a natural abundance in this universe, even if people are stealing and doing all that. And if I want abundance, I can create it. If I want to have a good time while I'm here on earth, I can have it. Okay? There are people like that, and believe you me, that they ain't feeling that stuff. They're really not feeling that stuff. They may have. They walk the path of letting it go. All right? They realize the feelings were the illusion, the thoughts associated with the illusion changed my perception. All right? You know, this is something that it's a shame that there's not enough people out there actually who have a platform, the influencers, understand this stuff so they may be able to impart it with people. Okay? You know, I say to my sons every day, ask yourself, why do I want this thing I want? And if it's coming from, and don't judge it, because if it's coming from the desire that's triggered from contrast, but it's still been driven by an agenda of wanting to get revenge, or wanting to prove a point, or wanting to get back at, or wanting to, I don't like being bullied, so I'm now going to become the bully. You know, all that kind of stuff. The universe ain't going to respond to you.
Yeah.
Not because there's judgment. I used to think it was because there was karma was judgment.
Oh, right.
Yeah. You know, in other words, if you're a good person, you're going to get good. Nah, the universe don't give a damn about that either. All right. The universe only responds by the of where's your energy? Is your energy aligned with the universal vibration?
Yeah.
Are you connected to source? You can be the sweetest, kindest person going around giving up your whole life to help others. But if you're still miserable, really, okay, when someone squeezes you, if you get angry, if someone pushes you hard enough, do you get upset? And when a tragedy happens, do you start crying because you feel really how sad it is? Then you ain't what you think you are. You're deluded. All right?
Very good.
And it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's okay, by the way. There's no judgment in any of this. As long as you're okay with that, just tell yourself the truth, because then you'll probably find life becomes a lot easier.
That's quite a difficult one, I think. You know, because if you do the right thing, there is an expectation that you'll get.
And that
you'll
human
go to heaven.
And what does human expectation normally lead to?
Disappointment.
Yes. But what is true expectation? Meaning when I'm so aligned with my source, really am. I've cleaned up, my nails. I've fixed the bucket.
Oh yeah, the rusty nails.
Yeah. And I'm now genuinely, unconditionally feeling peace and joy no matter what is going on around me and no matter what anyone else is doing. That expectation will be fulfilled. And by the way, the wonderful thing is it doesn't have to be 100%. I want to reiterate that. If you just shifted, you see, I had to get, if I was looking at it at my barometer was measuring on 100%, what percent was I living like that to begin with, my starting point in life?
Yeah.
My starting point, and when was life really starting in that sense? Starting probably starts about 7 or 8 years old. That's when it starts. My starting point as 7 or 8 year old was probably 90, 80% already in the negative energy. Okay? That was my starting point. I'm not 100% and I'm not even expecting to be 100%. I wanted to get the dominant. I wanted to pass 50% of the time no matter what is going on to feel good. Okay? And the progress I've made, I am so appreciative and so grateful for. It's so amazing because I never thought I would have that. I didn't expect to be alive at this stage of my life. How could I have been? All right. And then to be able to be part of, my kids' lives. I never thought I'd have kids. I mean, these weren't things that I actually desired. You understand? They weren't, the non-existence of living and not having kids never caused me any pain.
Yeah.
All right. I didn't expect to have the life I have today. Not having it years ago was what I strive for. I gave it up. Anyone who really knows me knows away. By the time I was 22, I walked away from the material good life.
Yeah.
The power, meaning over people, because that's what you will have with that. I walked away from it, so I never had a desire for it. I had to work damn hard to let it back in. Okay?
Yeah.
Because I didn't understand that what I was doing was insane. I wasn't honoring my spirit, and nor was I honoring the God I believed in. But I thought I was. I really thought this is how I'm going to get happiness.
You have to give it up.
I thought I would find peace and happiness by giving it all up and going on this journey. And there are a lot of people who think they'll find peace and happiness right now by the social activism they're participating in. All this stuff. You won't. And if you're in your 20s and you're still alive by the time you're 40, you probably most of the time will be drunk on something. You'll be medicating on something. Unless you wake up now.
Very good.
All right. Sounds like you've had enough for the day. I didn't think we were going to go all